it's easier to say than it is to walk out fully. And I talk about this often because I truly believe that it is such an issue that is so close to us that we can't even see it. That many of our opinions are not even truly our own. Hi, friend. I'm Susan Beth, and you are listening to the Susan Beth Podcast, where we talk about living life intentionally and about trusting that the desires you have deep within you are there for a reason. I believe that the creator of the universe put those desires within you and that they are pathways to your purpose. My desire is that this would be a space that encourages you to lean in and to hear the whispers of the divine, and that you would be reminded of things that I honestly believe you already know. That you, my friend, are here for a reason. So if you're here for more conversations in that kind of space, welcome. Let's go. Hey, how's it going? I would say that I can't believe that we are already on the backside of spring, but I can believe it. And I believe it because if I've learned anything in my life, I have learned to hold things loosely. And your girl was not always a hold things loosely kind of gal. I'm sure my spontaneous and at times crazy personality led many to believe that I was a total extrovert. But I have always had equal introvert characteristics as well. And that was always a little confusing to me, because when I would read the different characteristics of an extroverted person, I feel like I could check a lot of them off, and I could see that being around people gave me energy. But on the other side, I could also check off a lot of the introvert qualities, because I absolutely love being alone. Now, I didn't always love being alone growing up, but as I've gotten older, I absolutely love it. And I love going places by myself, all the things alone. I love it. It feeds me. And what feeds me as well is being around people. Put me in a crowded, loud room and I'm having a blast and I'm staying until the end. It wasn't until years later that I heard the term ambivert. I believe that's how you say it, which is a personality type that falls between being extrovert and introvert. And it's someone that has qualities from both of those personality types. But here's the thing. I used to be all about the personality test, and I still appreciate very much how the Enneagram gave me language and made me feel less out there. But at the end of the day, there is no box that I am fitting all nice and tidy in, and either are you. It can be super helpful in many ways for us to understand our personality bents, and it can be helpful in living in community with all kinds of personalities and helping us to understand the differences within each of us and the ways that we communicate and that we each walk through and experience life. So for me, I think maybe the increase in self-awareness was the biggest gift that I found from all of these personality tests and learning more about us as individuals. Me being able to not be so reactive in taking everything so personally, but being able to see myself and how I'm wired as well as those around me from a different perspective. So I'm not sure how I just went all the way down that road. Okay, I think it was because I was saying how I had learned to hold things loosely and how I hadn't always been that way. I was definitely a black and white kind of thinker growing up and well into my adulthood. Either I loved it or I hated it. There wasn't much room for, well, let's be honest, there wasn't much room for life, which is exactly what started me saying all this. Because yes, in some ways it's hard to believe that we're in the second half of spring and summer will be here before you know it. But the fact is, this spring season, it looks nothing like I thought it might. And as frustrating as that has felt to me on many days, in the end, it's all good. It's all good. It makes me think about the change that I saw in my niece Jacqueline's life when years ago, her husband was tragically killed in a car accident, suddenly leaving her with 2 young children to navigate her new normal. And I witnessed a strength and a peace rise up within her and a new costly acquired ability to let go of all the things that simply don't matter in the end. I could just remember being in a conversation and something being brought up and seeing that her response was different, where the other people in the circle, we were still all uptight about something. But circumstances and just little normal life frustrations didn't affect her in the same way after experiencing such loss. And I have now found that to be true. The more life you live and more loss you walk through, the more clearly you have the ability to see life around you, real life. And you're able to hold loosely everything else. Though not perfectly, I have been walking through the spring journal and trying to keep up with the weekly focuses and been reading about the planting and the watering and the growing. And when you've walked out of a winter and the temperatures have changed and the days are longer and brighter, growth and energy isn't hard to run towards and long to embrace. And yet, I've clearly been reminded that even though we have desires, that ultimately we hold our seasons loosely, trusting fully in our God who holds them securely. Because the growth in the energy that I saw myself running towards and into this spring felt halted by lingering sickness that seemed to keep spreading through my close circle of people and kept me from living at my normal pace for a few weeks. So instead of feeling a pull towards growth and visible blooms, I found myself wanting to rest and do less. And one of those things was I found myself not wanting to take in a lot of social media, which I didn't think too much about because I always feel like I have an ebb and flow on my usage when it comes to social media. But when that time becomes more extended and I notice the desire, this time I had totally faded, I like to evaluate the why. So recently when I was looking at the why, I realized it's a common response that I have to noise. And I recognize that I tend to do this when things feel really noisy to me. So without even me consciously making the decision or understanding that I was pulling away, that's exactly what I was doing. And I probably wouldn't have even noticed that I was pulling it away since it is a natural rhythm for me and social at times. But I noticed it because I was feeling conflicted and I kept trying to force myself to show up on Instagram, as crazy as that might sound. And I love the personal connection that I have there, connecting with friends and with family. But it's also a place that I show up and I share the podcast and I share the seasonal journal. And you might have noticed I haven't done that this season. And it's not content that I have to come up with. It's content that has already been created. And some of it is in real time. Actually, a lot of it is, but I'm pulling from content that's already been created for the season. And I wasn't doing that. So I felt conflicted that I was dropping the ball in that area and feeling the contrast of here I'm living in this season of growth, and I'm feeling the opposite of that. I'm feeling the opposite of springing up and flourishing and revealing fruit. Or so I thought. And that's the tricky thing that I want to talk about life and perception with ourselves and perception of those looking on at our life. Growth isn't always evident with our eyes. And I reread many times the weekly focus quote from a few weeks back that reads, "Seeds hold promise and potential, but it is in the stillness of the soil where the true power resides." I love that. Sometimes growth looks like us pulling back and being more selective on what we are taking in every way. And I don't know about you, but I am finding these days I am more hungry than ever for the real. I'm hungry for real food, not the cheap processed stuff that is so readily available that doesn't satisfy for long, and it brings no nourishment to my body. Yet I can still find myself reaching out for it to satisfy something. I'm also hungry for real connection with God over opinions of man and what a particular person might think that needs to look like. And that is growth. That is growth, my friend. God's opinion over the opinion of any other. It's easier to say than it is to walk out fully. And I talk about this often because I truly believe that it is such an issue that is so close to us that we can't even see it. That many of our opinions are not even truly our own. And part of earlier me mentioning that about not being on social and feeling like I was dropping the ball, which in some ways could be accurate, as I do use the platform not only for personal connection, but for business as well. But the conclusion when I really dive into that I always end up coming back to is, who is making the rules that I'm living by? And I get it that there are circumstances and responsibilities for each of us that we don't always have the luxury to say, I'm not doing that today or this week or this month. But there are so many things that take up our energy and space in our hearts and our minds that we are allowing to take up space because someone else has deemed it important. And because we visually see these opinions so often with our eyes and we hear it said over and over, we have taken it on as our own. When maybe it is, but it might not be ours to take on. And the tricky part is it's harder for us to discern when it is something that is good. Because if it's something that's good, why wouldn't it be good for me? Why wouldn't it be good for you if it's good? Food is a great example of this. There are people that can eat things and they do very well with them. Their body processes it just fine and all is well. Where I can eat the same food and everything is not all fine and well. And it's not that the food is bad for whatever reason, and it can be different for each of us, a different reason for each of us. It's not what my body needs or can process or take in as nourishment at this particular time. And you can play that same scenario out in many different areas of life. Maybe all your friends are signing their kids up for a particular sport at a certain age. And even though in your gut, you don't think it's a good time for your child, you do it because you trust the choices and the opinions of others more than you trust your own. And there's nothing wrong with your child or your parenting or the sport or class that everyone is signing up for. Maybe it's just not for you. Or maybe it's just not for you at this time. But unless you slow down enough to process the decisions you're making and your why and your peace level, you very well might continue to live life on everyone's terms around you. And the scary part is they are all being influenced to live the life that they're living. I want to remind you today, that your Creator loves you and He designed you with certain personality bents and abilities that are good and they're needed. You need what you have inside of you, and so do those around you. So listen closely to that still small voice. And that's why we got to drown out, turn it down, turn it off, all of the other noise, and listen and tune into that still small voice and allow it to resound within your spirit. And then it will echo and naturally flow out of you in its season and time. So I want to end with asking you, where are you growing this spring? Maybe you are living life in full bloom, full of life and color, or maybe you are continuing to be faithful in watering seeds that aren't flowering in the time frame that you were expecting. Yet, even now, you are growing in ways not visible to the human eye, flourishing just as you are, right where you are. And it's perfectly beautiful. Love you, friend. We'll talk soon. Hey, you. Thanks for listening. And if you would like to connect more, head over to SusanBeth.com and sign up, and you will be one of the first to find out about anything new. Plus, there's a special free download available just to say thanks. If something in this episode did speak to you, would you do me a favor and share it with a friend that you think it might resonate with as well? And until next time, keep showing up in the world just as God purposed you to do, because you being you is exactly what we all need.